So I'm so excited to talk to you a little bit about our focus on community engagement. And First Five Monterey County's priority in our new strategic plan, the 2023 to 29 strategic plan, one of our top priorities is really to ensure that young children and families have been furthest from opportunity and most impacted by systems inequities are at the center of our work as we move forward. And we know that in order to achieve that priority, that active and authentic community leadership and engagement is going to be critical. And so as we ourselves internally have sought to increase our skills and our knowledge about this work, through work with Building Healthy Communities and the Colibri cohort, as well as other trainings. We are also looking to help to support any funded partners who are selected in this next funding cycle to also deepen our work in that way. So what we have done in our approach to this is really think about our goals for community. And in our strategic plan, on page 16 of the strategic plan, priority A, we kind of get a sense of what that looks like. And so table 2 on that page talks about priority A, to ensure that young children and families furthest from opportunity and most impacted by systems inequities are at the center of First Five Monterey County's work. And some of our objectives in order to get there would be to increase power and influence over decisions, increasing community members and family members' ability and impact the decisions that impact them, to make sure that the quality services are distributed equitably in Monterey County, and that will help ensure that historically underserved populations have access, and that systems are accountable to those who have been historically excluded from decision-making, including communities of color. So we're excited to have with us Rosa Gonzalez, who is the author of the Spectrum of Community Engagement to Ownership, to talk a bit about that tool and that framework, because we've used it as we designed our strategic plan, and we want to use it as we're implementing it as well, and to support funded partners to do the same. So next, we're going to hear from Rosa to talk a little bit about that spectrum of community engagement. Rosa?
It's great to be here with you, Francine, and I'm so excited that First Five is so committed to ensuring that parents and families here in Monterey County have a voice in what the kinds of services around early childhood development they receive, what that looks like, what our regional vision for healthy childhood development looks like, and really appreciating the way First Five itself is adopting practices that allow for greater voice in the way you do grant making, your grant making priorities, really exciting. And then also inviting potential grantees to think about and be really intentional about how they're doing engagement. And that's exactly the purpose of the spectrum of community engagement to ownership. This tool was, I developed it in collaboration with others and based on research around effective engagement methods and the impact of different engagement methods on communities who have been historically pushed to the margins of decision-making and planning that impacts them. And so what this tool does is it lays out sort of a pathway from marginalization or being sort of left out of decision-making that impacts you, all the way to community ownership or having a direct say over the decisions that impact you, over the plans that impact you, direct say over the resources we need to live, such as food and water and education and healthcare. And then every step along the way that is outlined here in the spectrum, from marginalization to community ownership, indicates sort of ways in which we can build capacity for breaking down the barriers to participation that communities experience, as well as building greater community capacity to have a more direct say and direct involvement in the decisions and plans that impact us. And so this tool is one that is currently being used by local governments around the country. It's being used by organizations of all sorts. It's being used by climate justice organizations, by climate policy organizations. It's being used by food banks. It's being used by organizations that work on housing. Just an incredibly wide range of entities are using this spectrum as a way to do a few things. One is to assess what where their current engagement is when it comes to the communities they serve, and to set goals around where they want their level of involvement with the communities they serve to be at within a given amount of time, and to articulate what it will take to get there. What kinds of shifts in practice will it take to move and advance along that spectrum? And one of the reasons, as Francine was naming so clearly, one of the reasons why it's powerful for groups and service providers and organizing groups and local governments to be intentional about advancing along the spectrum is, and we've experienced this in our own lives, and we've seen it in our work. The more direct say one has, the more sense of ownership, sense of responsibility, sense of commitment, sense of that my voice matters, that my experience matters. The more people feel empowered in that way, the more effective that given project or service provision is. So the other reason, and very much connected to that, is the more we commit ourselves to repairing some of the harm that has been caused as a result of persistent and historic marginalization, that commitment to achieving equity or repairing that harm and ensuring that all people have specifically what they need in order to thrive, the more clear it becomes that that's only possible when people actually have leadership and voice and power in how that repair happens, what that looks like, what are the right solutions for them, et cetera. So for groups that are focused on providing support to families around early childhood development, you may have experienced this as well, that the more parents feel empowered within that process, the more families feel empowered within that service provision, the more effective your services actually are. And so, like I already named, you can use the spectrum as a way to assess where are we currently at now? What level of voice and capacity do our clients, our customers, the communities we're accountable to, what level of voice do they currently have? And then, like I said, to set goals, where do we want to be? What's realistic? Where can we get to? and what will it take to get there. So that's one way, is sort of assessment, goal setting, and then planning. One of the first steps that I recommend and is included, actually there's instructions included in this tool that I believe you all will receive, is to take some time as a staff with people at all levels of the organization, and ideally with clients as well, to reflect on each stage of the spectrum. So to first start with marginalization, and reflect on this question: in what ways do the families we serve, in what ways are they left out or experience barriers to participating in the design of what we do, in the assessment of what we do, or actually even just participating in the receipt of services. And then to look at the next stage, inform what information do the families we are accountable to need in order to effectively navigate the services we provide. What are the methods for information sharing that are most relevant culturally, linguistically, and with regards to education level, et cetera, which methods are most relevant to our communities, and how can we improve our current methods to ensure that information sharing really is effective for our families, but also helps them see themselves as leaders, as actors, as stewards of this work. And then at the level of consult, on what aspects of our programming do we actually consult the families we serve? Where are there opportunities for more consultation? Where are there opportunities to improve how we consult families so that they can really see how their voice has impacted our programming? And then moving on to level 3, involve. Where are there opportunities for the families we serve to actually lead within our programming? For some agencies and organizations that do early childhood development, early literacy, they've engaged a prometore model where members of the community actually become the educators within the community, or creating leadership councils that are designed to assess and improve the programming, and actually compensating community members to play that role of helping to design what programming looks like based on an assessment of what's working and where there's opportunities for improvement. So thinking through what are the opportunities to really deepen involvement and to allow for greater voice and power within our programming to ensure it truly meets the needs, the strengths, the visions of the families we serve. Are there opportunities for greater collaboration across organizations or with other types of organizations that serve our community that would allow for a strengthening of programming and deeper empowerment of the community? And then reflecting on the last stage, community ownership. Where are there opportunities for community members to take full ownership and responsibility? For some, that has looked like creating worker co-ops where service providers have direct ownership of the services they provide and are co-designing, co-implementing. So early childhood care providers or literacy specialists can actually form cooperatives, and or let's say you're working specifically with Indigenous communities and providing one opportunity at a level 5, a defer to level would be to support Indigenous providers to initiate their own service provision, so that it's truly culturally relevant and driven by that particular community. So first, starting with that opportunity to reflect all along the spectrum, where are there opportunities for us to deepen our practice? The next thing I would say is to relinquish, even though there's sort of numbers associated and we've used the word assess, that it's not about judging in a negative way the work that you do. It's more a chance to illuminate the possibilities that there are to continually strengthen. And I think this is really the spirit with which First 5 is adopting this tool, is to invite all of its potential grantees to be in that inquiry with them around how do we continually improve our programming by deepening the amount of not just the amount, but the ways in which the families our agencies, our organizations serve, actually have a voice in determining what that looks like and how the programs are improved. So Francine, I would love to talk a little bit more with you about how you see grantees using the tool, the kinds of methods and ways of approaching the work that you all are thinking about as you reach out to potential grantees.
Thank you, Rosa. I think you gave a lot of actually great examples in the discussion that you shared with us. We really want to help to support the organizations who are applying for this grant to think deeply about the ways in which they can integrate community voice in their programs, whether or not that's through ways to include them in their staffing and ways to help get them to inform the trainings and the implementation, how we are being accountable to the families for looking at how our program has been implemented and asking them to weigh in on what they're feeling as if the approach is what's worked and what's not worked, building that parent power and capacity. And we'll be working with the funded partners as well overall to look at that as how we at First 5 are doing that as well. But we know that we believe that children and families, when they have the power to shape the programs and services and systems that are meant to support them, better outcomes will be achieved by all of us. And so if there are more questions or people need additional support around community engagement, there is going to be a presentation that will be made as part of the application to a group of action team members who are representing community on a couple of aspects of the application. One on how the focus populations will be supported in culturally affirming ways, and the other on how families will be engaged in the program in the future. And so if people want to talk some more about that or need some additional support on that, they're welcome to put a question in the Survey Monkey that's in the application. And there'll also be a special session that Rosa is going to be able to answer questions on and think through topics around this on February 23rd at 1:30 p.m. We'll put the information in on the website for the link to the Zoom and send that out to folks. But February 23rd, 1:30 to 2:30. So I want to thank Rosa again for joining us with this to help illuminate more about the spectrum of community engagement. And we're excited about being on this journey together and learning together to really authentically shift the voice and power in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you.